Is this the best campground in North America? Fort Wilderness at Disney World often tops a lot of people's lists, and we just got back, so we've got a lot of pros and cons to share with you, and you might be surprised at price not being one of the cons. Plus, we're going to talk about that whole Florida State Park situation. It's a big Florida episode today. This is RV Miles. Welcome to episode number 332 of RV Miles. I'm Jason.
And I'm Abby, and we are two RVers who, along with our three boys, Jack, Ethan, and Henry, have been RVing all across North America since 2016. Here at RV Miles, we talk all things RV and outdoors, from industry news to national parks, Florida, and a whole lot more.
We've got a fun show for you today. You know, whenever you talk to people about what the best campground in the U.S. is, a lot of people are going to say Fort Wilderness at Disney World. And that might lead a lot of people to think certain things about it, right? And I think when people go for the first time, their impressions are probably a little bit different than like, oh, this is just like the most wonderful place in the world. It's different. It's got a lot of pros. It's got a lot of cons. It's a great stay. But we just got back, so we thought we would spend some time here talking about our second visit to Fort Wilderness and some of the great things about it that should be, whether you're planning to go to Disney World ever or not, are interesting things to look for at other campgrounds, or things that campground owners might want to consider, and some things that aren't so great about it.
Well, here we are 4 years now out of the big boom in RVing, and we're 2 years removed from the last time that we were there. And I think one of the things really that's so different from when our 2022 trip to our 2024 trip is looking at the lens of Fort Wilderness in the price category, like looking at it through that lens, because we have talked so much, especially over the last several months, about sort of this disparity in price now with RVing. As the cost of RVs start to come down, as we start to level out, we're still seeing astronomical prices at the campgrounds. We talked a little bit about that with just a Love's RV stops. Yeah. Great stops, really, really nice. But for what they're supposed to be, $61 a night is a big ask. So this time at Fort Wilderness, we talked a lot about that as we were walking around the campgrounds, we had a golf cart this time, as we were driving around in our golf cart, looking at all of the different places that you can stay and all the things that you can do there. We talked a lot about the price point of Fort Wilderness. And frankly, this is one of the most searched campgrounds across the internet.
Yeah.
This is probably the most popular campground in the entire country. And it begs the question as to why. Is it really as great a campground to be able to fill hundreds and hundreds of spots?
Well, let's start there. Let's give you an overview of what Fort Wilderness is like, and then we'll go through our list of pros and cons. So Fort Wilderness is a campground that was built when the parks opened back in 1971 in Orlando at Disney World. This is a really good example of what camping is across the nation. For a lot of people, is that, you know, this is kind of the affordable way to have accommodations at Disney World for a lot of people. Instead of paying for a hotel, they can tent camp. They can take their RV if they already own one. You can rent an RV and have it placed on a lot there for you. They have cabins there as well. Those aren't super cheap, but
and they're pretty much all DVC now. So
nothing is super cheap. And I will say that this is not. It really isn't, unless you're tent camping, the cheapest place to stay at Disney World. And it's not the cheapest place to stay in the area, but I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get to price in a little bit.
Yeah.
Disney's Fort Wilderness Resort has over 800 campsites.
We believe. So I want to say that we found a lot of different numbers on this, ranging anywhere from mid 700s up to 800.
I suppose we could have got the map out and counted.
Well, you know what? At the same time, we would have had to count every individual teeny tiny little loop, because not all loops are the same size.
Well, the disparity that we don't know is is whether the cabin sites are included in the number of campsites. So they have what we think is over 800 campsites and over 400 cabin sites.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that's accurate because I don't think it's 400 campsites and 400 cabin sites.
No, and you might be wondering, that is a huge amount, right?
With some of the biggest, a very large RV resort is usually 200, 250 sites. There are some really big ones out there that are 500 plus sites. There are a couple out there that approach the size of Fort Wilderness, but Fort Wilderness is absolutely huge when it comes to the number of campsites they have at the park.
Well, let's put it into perspective. So Fort Wilderness sits on 750 acres. There are 20 loops total, and they have 5 different categories at Fort Wilderness when it comes to the type of campsite you can get. You can go with your tent pop-up site all the way up to their premium sites. And so that also means that there are 5 different categories of pricing here. So the amenities really quick include a quick service restaurant, horseback riding, carriage rides, multiple pools, arts and crafts, movie nights, cast member-led activities. The Hoop-de-Doo Review is there. There's a marina, there's parks, there's dog parks, there's basketball courts, there's volleyball courts. There are buses that will take you just around the campground in addition to bus transportation to the parks. You can rent golf carts. There are laundry facilities in each loop and so much more. This place is a destination inside of itself. One of the things we talked about was that if you were to come to Fort Wilderness and stay for a week, you could do maybe a day or two in the parks and still feel like you are not losing out on a Disney feeling vacation. There's so much to do here. But again, price is a little tough, and I understand that. But I think as we get further into this conversation, you'll see why for us, it's not a con so much. Price depends a lot on the season. I'm not going to run through highs and lows of every single type, but I wanted to get somewhere in the middle to give you an idea. So a preferred campsite, which is close to the marina, and the marina has a boat that's going to take you over to Magic Kingdom. Magic Kingdom is the park that's closest to Fort Wilderness. That preferred campsite can run anywhere from $122 a night all the way up to $263 a night. And I saw the $263 price around the holidays, around Christmas.
It's very busy at Disney World around Christmas and into the new year, also over like 4th of July.
So we stayed, when we were there in 2022, we were in one of these preferred campsites. When we were there just recently here in 2024, we stayed in a full hookup campsite, which is one tier below that. And we were also there in August, which is one of their cheaper seasons because it is so unbelievably hot in Florida.
The campground season is not the same as the resort season.
No, it is not. And so when we were there this time, we paid $120 a night for our full hookup site, which was a perfect spot for our 25-foot IBEX 20 BHS. And then we had our truck in there with us. So again, prices are going to be like all over the place. And I did see their premium site, which is the top tier site, that did top out at $300 a night for, I think it was 2 weeks before Christmas.
Yeah.
But again, that is a huge popular time to be there because everyone decorates for the holidays in the campground as well. There's parades, like golf cart parades around Halloween in the campground itself. There's so much happening and festive around the holidays in the campground that it's very, very sought after, that this is something people come back to year and year and year again because it's just so incredibly special. One thing before we get into the pros and cons that I really want to mention here is that Fort Wilderness is a pet-friendly campground as well as the cabins. However, pets are not allowed in any tent or pop-up. It must be a fully self-contained RV for your pet to be in. And I think that has a lot to do with heat factors and noise factors if you're gone all day from the park. But that is something to keep in mind. If you have a tent or you have a pop-up and you have a pet, you're going to need to make some special accommodations for your family member. So that's kind of like an overview
All right, let's dig into some of our pros and cons. But
Yes.
first, you might have seen them on the road. That's because Blue Ox designs and manufactures the best towing products in the industry. Just look around. You'll find them on highways, in campgrounds, and anywhere you find people traveling in the great outdoors. From award-winning tow bars and base plates to a full line of weight-distributing hitches, adjustable ball mounts, and more. With Blue Ox, towing doesn't have to be a drag. Visit blueox.com for more information. Harvest Host is a membership that allows RVers to take a rest from the road and enjoy unlimited overnight stays at over 5,100 unique locations in North America, such as breweries, farms, attractions, wineries, and much more. Easily plan and book your next RV trip and enjoy over $1,500 in exclusive membership benefits by joining Harvest Host. Get 15% off your first year of membership with the code MILES. That's MILES. Go to harvesthost.com to become a Harvest Host member today.
Were you surprised that our pros list is about double the size of the cons list? Because I feel like it would have been the other way around last time.
Well,
like
I think you put the pros and cons list together. And I think I have.
I see how it is.
I do think I have more cons about it than you do.
Fair. Then I can't wait to see when you go rogue off the list.
I have very mixed feelings about Fort Wilderness. It's a great place. I absolutely love it. Am I one of those people that says I would go there just to go to the campground and not visit the parks? No.
Interesting.
For as much as you can list all those amenities, in some ways they seem somewhat inaccessible to me, or not as great as they sound, because a lot of the hotels also have similar or different amenities.
So when you put this campground up against, I think maybe, if I may say, I think you're doing a bit of an unfair, I think you're being unfair to this campground. I think putting this campground up against resorts at Disney is like trying to put, a KOA up against like the Four Seasons or the Ritz-Carlton or something a little bit, because they're just so different. There's no how. I mean, one of the complaints that someone made to us about staying at Fort Wilderness is they didn't get housekeeping.
Well, okay.
And I'm like, hey, fair enough that mousekeeping didn't come. But you know what? Like, the flip to that is that I saved hundreds of dollars, and I had my own kitchen, my own bed, and my own space.
It's a great place. When we put it on this pedestal as the greatest campground in the country, I'm not there.
That's not my words. Those are the internet's. Okay.
Sure. I'm not, it's not an argument with you. I'm not saying like you, I mean, a lot of the things that I feel about it, you feel the same. I think we just put different weights on different things, and that's fine. But let's get into some of this, and then we can sort of tease them apart a bit.
Yeah.
And start off with the things that I really do love about Fort Wilderness, and some of our pros. So the first one being the way it's laid out, for part of how it's laid out, the way the loops are laid out. Let me say that. All right. So it's a huge campground, lots of campsites, as we mentioned, but each loop itself feels like a decent state park loop to me. Mm-hmm. The sites they're close-ish together, not as close as a lot of Orlando area campgrounds, but they do a really good job of doing excellent landscaping around the sites so that you feel separated from your neighbor. There might be, I don't know how many sites there are in a loop, but it is a fairly small loop.
I think I read somewhere between 25 and 41 sites within each loop, which really does give a small campground feel.
A little neighborhoody feel.
And I said this multiple times, and I would love to see this in other campgrounds as well. Now, Fort Wilderness has the benefit of being a campground since 1971.
Right. If they built it today, would it be different? Perhaps. Perhaps.
But in regards to separation between you and your other campsite, they've got decades on all of the growing bushes. And, I wonder, you could probably pull up a photo of what it looked like, 40 years ago. And I'm sure it's probably very, very different, right? But right now what you have is a campground that has come into its own in regards to all of the plants and vegetation and the beautiful landscaping that they have done there. And these sites, you step out to your door and you don't see your neighbors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they have created space. Like, you're not butted up against someone behind you either.
Well, that's one of the benefits of
that.
doing loops instead of rows, right? So it, like a state park, you go around the loop and you back into your little site, and it's your own little space. The sites themselves are all very flat and paved and well maintained and landscaped. And we've talked about this in the past, how they take care of the sites in between stays. They come and clean the site.
Power wash.
They power wash. They use a leaf blower and blow off all the whatever's on the site, rocks or vegetation or whatever. They sanitize the picnic table with like a non-toxic sanitizer. They sanitize the water hookups and stuff like that. The hookups themselves are really great. The sewer hookup is, if you ever complained about a sewer hookup that's like a foot off the ground, it's just such an annoying thing to hook your sewer up and drain into. Well, theirs are 6 inches below grade, and they're in like a stainless steel basin that also has its own additional little drain. So if you have a little spillage in there, you just rinse it down the drain. There's no sewage ever going anywhere else. The water and electric hookups are great. They've redone all the electric hookups since we've been there last time. They were getting a little questionable. Now they have new ones that are great, and there is a Wi-Fi router. I don't know if it's at every single site. I don't know if they've redone all of the hookups, but the power posts themselves have Wi-Fi routers in them. So you're not going to have the blazing fast internet, but you're going to have good signal. Right. Yeah. So it is still like hotel quality internet. It's good enough for us to watch some TV and stuff, but it is a great signal. You're never going to be away from the Wi-Fi signal.
But I would say one of the biggest parts of all of that too is the dedicated bathhouse for each and every loop.
Yeah.
And it's not just a bathhouse. It's a bathroom that is very well maintained and clean.
It's a real bathroom.
It's a real bathroom with showers. Mm-hmm. And then you have a laundry room in each and every loop. You do not have to leave the loop you are in to go and do your laundry. It is absolutely fantastic. And they do have someone that comes through multiple times a day and cleans and maintains the bathroom and the shower houses. Never once did I go into the shower house while I was there and find a dirty space. And I was going in at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. So, after what would have seemingly been a long day of use by people, and it was still really spotless. That is such a perk to me, to not have to walk multiple loops over or all the way at the other side of the park.
A bathhouse that's shared by hundreds of sites.
Exactly.
When you have when you have more bathhouses, they're just inherently less dirty.
We witnessed cast members wiping down the trash cans in each loop when they would come and collect the trash out of the trash cans every morning, I think, and I saw someone in the afternoon as well. They wipe down the outer part of that as well to keep that looking nice and clean. I mean, you are getting, again, we come back to price. What you're paying, I paid $120 a night. I was in what is technically their off season. But when I think about the value that I'm getting for that, like the quality and care that goes into that campground to maintain a certain level, I have a hard time being like, oh, it's too much money. Now, I know $300 is a huge difference, but I also know if I'm coming there at Christmas, I'm knowing that I'm going to pay those prices. I'm coming for something, even more.
So let's talk about price now, because we sort of have decided that the price is not, at least it's not as much of a con as it used to be. Because, prices at campgrounds have gone up across the country, and Fort Wilderness's prices haven't really increased that much over this boom in camping. So where you've got you've got other RV resorts out there that used to be $60 a night, $50 a night that are now 100, 110 or whatever. And particularly if you're in a place like Orlando, look, you got to compare it to the local real estate there. You're going to go to another campground there. They've gotten a lot more expensive, whereas Fort Wilderness was expensive before and hasn't raised the rates dramatically since maybe 5 years ago, right? So you have to consider that now. And the price thing is getting a little bit better. And you have to weigh that price against two things. Number one being parking. When you book at Fort Wilderness or any Disney resort, your theme park parking is included. And that's $30 a day. Or if you're in like if you're in like an oversized vehicle, I think it's 35 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So right there, $30 a day, add that on to whatever local RV park you'd be staying at, because that's got to be part of your price equation if you're going to be driving into the Disney World parks. On top of that, you have access to Disney transportation when you are at Fort Wilderness. So you can get on those boats over to the Magic Kingdom. You can get on the buses to the other three parks. The other thing to think about is the amount of time you have. If you've never been to Disney World before, you might not realize how big this place is. It is massive. It can take you a half hour to get from one theme park to another theme park. And being able to stay on site maybe for fewer days than you would have stayed off site and not having to drive in can save you some time. So you have to factor all of that in to the price when you make the determination. If you're strictly making a price determination, am I staying in an RV resort just outside of Disney, or if I want to stay there, you need to include those things in your thinking.
I think a really good point, and we should say, this episode is not sponsored by Disney World, but if they want to call us, they can. But I should say that one of the things, a point that was made to me about a comment that someone shared with me was, I can go and get a Airbnb in Orlando for $120 a night that has a pool. This price is ridiculous for a campground.
No, you cannot.
And they can. They came back and they backed that up with a fact, and they showed me the site that they were talking about, and I went and I clicked on it. The site itself, and it looked great. I didn't do a lot of digging into like reviews or anything on it, but it was only up to 4 people could be there. And then anyone else after that, it was $5 additional a day. So for our family, then it becomes $125. Then on top of that, there's a $120 cleaning fee that I don't get back.
That's what I'm talking about right there.
On top of that, I'm then paying $30 a day, at least at Disney World, to go and park. I'm also further removed from the parks, another 20-minute drive to get into the park, in addition to the amount of time that I will then sit in traffic to get in. So I said, this could be my response to this person was not to try and knock them down and prove them wrong, but I said, this could be a really great option for someone that is not just solely going to Disney, but is going to be experiencing all of the different things that you can do in Orlando. But for our family, this Airbnb is actually more expensive for us a night than staying at this campground.
It's significantly more expensive.
I mean, just the cleaning. See, this is the thing that gets you. It's those fees. It's those cleaning fees. It's the same with like the airline. When you go to buy a ticket from the whole thing with Ticketmaster and Live Nation and all of that, right?
I'm so done with Airbnb. It has become such a now you could make the argument that you could stay at a resort at Disney. Like you could stay at one of the value resorts at Disney World.
For our family of 5, we could not.
So that's
because there's a limited amount of larger rooms. Now, these campsites, I should also point out, are up to 10 people.
Yeah,
you do not get charged that kid tax.
That's a big reason why people stay at Fort Wilderness. It's a big reason why people might rent a RV to have parked there. I don't think it works out financially if you don't have a lot of people, if you're doing the RV rental thing, or if you're, just wanting to do it for fun or whatever. But that is a reason to stay there, because at a lot of, and it's also a reason a lot of people stay in the cabins there that I think sleep six, is a lot of the resorts at Disney, most of them, you can only have up to 4 people in the rooms. You're not allowed to have a 5th person. And if you want to have a 5th person, you have to book at some of the expensive resorts. So,
or you end up having to get those family suites, even in the values, and they're still relative. Like there's still 20 to 30, 40% more. Yeah. So there's really, I feel like the biggest, and we're gonna get to some cons here now, but I feel like the biggest thing going for Fort Wilderness is not that it's Fort Wilderness. Like we don't have rose-colored glasses on because it's Disney and we're Disney people. This is really about just even the difference between what we saw in 2022 prices to where we're at in 2024, and having been across to all boondocking, state parks, federal parks, private campgrounds, and to see the cost and then put it up against this cost is really, I think at this point, a blueprint for what we should all expect when we pay our hard-earned money to stay somewhere. If you're going to ask me to pay $90, $100, there are certain level, I think that you need to match that
you
price.
Need to have like hotel quality service. Now, I'm not saying they're cleaning your RV for you, but you have the front desk check-in and all that needs to be fantastic. It needs to be immaculately clean and all that sort of stuff.
But Fort Wilderness's version of housekeeping is the individual care that they give to each site in between guests.
Yeah. They do a fantastic job
coming over and cleaning the picnic table to ensure that you arrive with a clean picnic table after the guests before you. I think it's stuff like that at that price point. And I am sure that we have not been to every private campground in the country. So I am sure,
or in the area.
Yeah. So I am sure that there are others reaching for that level of service as well and doing a really fabulous job at it. And if you know of a place like that, shout it out in the comments, send us an email, leave it in the group. Let's talk about those campgrounds that we feel are justifying the price that they're asking for. Because what I expect from a $20 or $30 campground is not the same as what I expect from a $120 campground. I know what I'm getting into.
Yeah.
And so I just think that Fort Wilderness really does a good job of justifying the cost of their campground.
They do. There's just a level of service at Disney, and it's gone up and down over the years. But like here, let me give you a good example. We were there were some thunderstorms, and when there's lightning, the boats over to the Magic Kingdom don't run. Mm-hmm. Right. So there had been some lightning. I assumed that the boats weren't running, but I called up to see if they were running. And when you call up, you get there's a dedicated guest services number for the whole area. You don't get the front desk of the park, but they know everything and they can connect you with whoever. And I asked if the boats were running, and the guy answered me in such detail. He's like, they're not running right now. They do not run when there is lightning. We are tracking it very close. I mean, he was right away. He didn't have to go find the answer or anything. We're tracking it. So the storm has been moving out of the area. The lightning has been moving the direction away from the lake. And I would say probably about 10 minutes, give a call back and we'll let you know if it's running. But I would say probably give it about that amount of time. That kind of thing is what you get when you go to a place like this. And it's great.
He wasn't wrong. Like 10, 15 minutes later, the boat was running again.
And then there's all these amenities that, we've seen them all. We participated in some of them. We're theme park people. We go there to be in the park, to go to the theme parks. And that's a big part of what we're doing, though we do like to have resort days. But this is where it sort of moves to some of the cons for me.
Yeah, let's start to move into some of the cons. And the first one I put on this list was that the size, 750 acres, 20 loops, hundreds of cabins. This is an unwalkable resort campground.
If you have a site that is near one of the amenities, which are not all together, you can walk to that amenity, whether that's the pool or the boats or the bus stops in the front. 3 very different locations. So it is a very long and thin resort too. So it's a long distance from the front to the back of the resort. So at the front of the resort, you've got the check-in, and you've got the buses to 3 of the theme parks, or all 4 parks if the boats aren't running, but only the 3 generally. And then at the back of the resort, you've got the marina with the boat that takes you over to Magic Kingdom. You've got the quick service restaurant. You've got the Hoop-de-Doo Review dinner show. And then in the middle, you've got the main pool. Those are all very different distances from each other. And you cannot drive your vehicle and park it at those different locations.
No, it's like Teklenika in Denali. Once you arrive in that spot, that vehicle has to stay there unless you're leaving.
You can drive in and out of the camp. So that
Yes.
I think most people that tow a trailer like us are using their vehicle to get to the resorts a lot, because that tends to be the quickest way, unless you're, except for maybe the boats, the Magic Kingdom.
I mean, that's what we did. You also, it's free parking. Why not? Like, go be in your, comfortable air conditioned truck and drive over to the park that you're going to.
So what they do have is a bus loop that goes around all of Fort Wilderness. So you can get on a bus that does run very regularly all day long. You can get on the bus loop. Actually, there's a couple different lines to take you to some of these amenities on a bus. Then if you want to go to one of the theme parks, you're taking the bus to the front of the park or the back of the park, getting off and getting on another bus or getting on a boat. So there's a lot involved there. And if you book, the preferred sites that are close to the marina, or they might have other preferred site locations as well. But say you book the preferred sites close to the marina,
the premium,
that's great. You've got easy access over to the Magic Kingdom, to those boats. You got easy access to the quick service restaurant. When we say quick service, that's a Disney term for counter service, fast food. Essentially.
Yeah. No server involved.
And you've got access to the Hoop-de-Doo Review and the marina and stuff. But you are not close then to the pool. So you've got to figure out a way to get to the pool and all that sort of stuff. So last time we were there, we had a site close to the marina, and that was nice. It was walkable to the marina. That was very convenient. But what we decided was next time we came back, the price difference was enough that it was worth it to not book the preferred site and to rent a golf cart instead. So they have golf carts available to rent there that are like, it depends on which size you get. They've got a 4-seater and a 6-seater that are like $55 to $65 a night. So that's a big expense, on top of it. Or if you have bikes, you can take bikes around if you want to, or you can take the bus around. We were going to take our bikes around. It was so darn hot that I went up and rented a golf cart. Now, that is not something you can normally do. Normally, you have to book those golf carts well in advance. But the park was not busy when we were there.
It was 200 degrees while we were there. So the park was empty.
Our loop was probably half full. Yeah.
Which was wonderful because it also created even more quiet and more peace while we were there. The golf cart, that was really hard for me to accept the golf cart when you first drove up with it. But at that point, we had been...
Well, your foot was hurting. So I was like, I'm done with this.
And then...
You're not riding a bike.
We started driving around in the golf cart, and I was like, "Oh, I get it now.
You get it, yeah.
Oh, I get it."
Yeah. Of course, you can bring your own. You can bring one in if you've got one too. But it's
people decorate them. It's very it's fun.
It's a big thing around like Halloween and 4th of July and stuff. And Christmas, they have. Not only do people go way out and decorate their sites, they have like golf cart parades and stuff like that. They do stuff like that to make it fun.
So let's go through a couple more cons really quickly. Another one that we had was that the main pool is very small for the size of this resort. It's
it's not like super well themed either. It's okay.
It's big-ish. It's got, splash pad and it's got some things going on from it. But having just come from a resort where the pool was like this was you think, my gosh, there's could be potentially thousands and thousands of people here, and you've got this pool and that's it. And, so that I can imagine in peak season when the weather is fantastic, that pool is probably packed and it is very hard to enjoy. There is no sit down restaurant there. If you care about that, like Jason said, it's just the quick service, which is fast food. That might be important to you, but then at the same time, you have your own kitchen. So
if you haven't been there in a while, the Trails End restaurant, I think it's called. It used to be a table service restaurant, and they've changed it to a quick service restaurant. So we ate there a couple times. And
it's okay.
It's just okay.
Don't plan on it to be like your main source because, your arteries are not going to appreciate that.
You can order a pizza from there, it's.
And those pizzas, I have to say, the pizzas, you can get a large pizza from there for $19, which for a theme park food is really cheap. And a large pizza two large pizzas can feed our whole family. And that includes basically 3 teenagers with some leftovers. So the fact that I could feed the 5 of us for $40 was just amazing. I was thrilled by it. The sites, so again, a reminder, this was built in 1971. This is a big complaint by people. The sites can be harder for bigger rigs to get into. When this campground was built, we weren't all running around in 43-foot fifth wheels, and so
they do have larger sites.
They do.
It has a lot to do with the bend in the loop road, and that loop road isn't very wide. It's a one-way road, right? So when you go to back up, sometimes it's hard to not deal with the truck that's parked. It has its nose next to the road across the street from you, or the trees or whatever. But they are so incredibly accommodating there. If the site you're backing up into, you're having a really hard time getting in, call up front and they will send you to something that's a little bit better for you.
Yeah. And probably a piece of advice that we can give for that when you go to book is if you are selecting a site or you're given that option, like when we arrived, we were given the option to pick in our loop which site we wanted out of what they had available. When you're given that option, if you're given that option and you have a larger rig, try to pick a site that is not on the curve of the loop. I think it'll serve you a little bit better. And that was we had an issue with that with our Sabre, with our 43-foot fifth wheel. We were on the curve of a loop.
And it's actually that's where we got that little ding in the truck's running boards. Yeah. It's the only time we ever damaged the old pickup truck. The old Fordo had a sort of a scratch in the metal on its running boards because I hit some sort of post that was at the end of the site with the running board.
Yeah, so just something to keep in mind. And of course, neighbors are also nice and accommodating. And if they happen to be there, they will lovingly move their truck for you because the last thing they want is for you to hit their truck. So everyone will work together to get it done. But just something to bear in mind if you get to pick your site and you have a bigger rig, just maybe try to stay away from the curve of the loop if you can. I know when you're talking about a loop, everything's kind of at a curve, but the sharper parts of the curve. The sharper parts. Those first sites as you come in are usually really great, and the same with the ones towards the end. It's really as you start to get towards the back of the loop.
So overall, it is in a lot of ways a fantastic campground. Had they to do it all over again, maybe they would do some things differently. I would certainly do some things differently. Like I said, I'm personally not somebody that loves it enough that I'm like, I want to go just camp there for a week and not go to the parks. To me, like the pool doesn't make it great enough for that. There's like the campfire show and stuff like that. But beyond that, I'm not going to pay to go fishing. I'm not going to rent a canoe to go in the little swampy river. Those things are things that I would rather do at a good state park somewhere than here.
I forgot to mention that they do have canoeing there. The one place where you don't have to worry about hitting something when you back in or wanting to really leave the campground?
What?
Amana, Iowa. Do you want to know why?
Why?
Because there's an RV Miles homecoming event there.
Okay, that was a great transition there. I thought we could finish it off.
No,
with
we're done. We're done with Fort Wilderness.
But it's probably the best option if you're driving an RV and are going to spend some time at Disney World.
That's fine.
Perhaps if you're going to split your stay between Disney World and going over to Universal, you might think of another place. But I think if you're staying at Disney World in an RV, it makes sense.
You want to know what's a great campground to stay at if you're not going to Disney World?
Would you like to talk about homecoming now?
There's a campground in Amana, Iowa you can stay at. You want to know how much that campground in Amana, Iowa is?
$35 a night.
$35 a night.
Our homecoming event is coming up October 9th. We're so excited to host some folks from the RV Miles community there. We're going to have a great time. We're going to have communal meals every night. We're going to have a cornhole tournament. We're going to have a big trivia night, which was a lot of fun last year. We're going to have prizes and lots of different little talks from folks in the community together if you want to participate in those. And then we're going to go in town and visit Amana, which is a great, cool, historic German village that has wineries and shops and a brewery and all sorts of fun stuff. It's just a party to celebrate the end of the traditional camping season. And we have a great time.
You want to know what doesn't cost to park?
What?
Going into Amana.
Okay.
Doesn't cost to park. Did you know that you can bike from our campground into downtown Amana? Yeah. Did you know that there's a brewery in Amana? Yeah. There's wineries, there's shops. There's some of the best coffee in Amana for the fall that I'm telling you, you're going to want to get your hands on because you're going to want to come to homecoming and take that pumpkin creme brulee coffee home with you.
And your tickets to homecoming and your campsite all together is going to cost you, maybe it would cost you to spend 2 days at Fort Wilderness.
Depending on the time of year that you go. So if you want to learn more about homecoming, you can go to rvmiles.com/homecoming. As a reminder for our mile marker friends, you do get a $25 per ticket discount to this event. That makes it a $200 ticket. For the rest of the RV Miles community, it's $225. But as you mentioned, that includes all of those activities. We will not have any horseback riding available to you. There will not be a hoop-de-doo review there, but there will be Jason leading trivia. And that's basically like hoop-de-doo review.
Yeah, it's basically
the same thing. So rvmiles.com/homecoming to learn more. We cannot wait to see you there.
The RV lifestyle is about community, and the RV community is at the heart of RV Life. RV Life recently celebrated the 1 millionth trip planned with RV Life Trip Wizard, their excellent trip planning tool for RVers featuring all the trusted reviews, pictures, and tips from their RV Life campground site. RV Life also features several blog sites and over 20 additional RVing forums to serve the RV community. All this experience and community feedback come together to help create a fantastic RV trip planner and mobile navigation tool collectively called RV Life Pro. RV Life has marked a milestone of over 3 billion with a B miles traveled using RV Life Pro, counting both the planned RV trips and ad hoc navigation with the included RV Safe mobile app. Take 25% off RV Life Pro at the link in the description for this episode.
All right, well, it is time to check the level of our tanks. And that, as always, is sponsored by our friends over at Liquefied RV Toilet Treatment, the no BS toilet treatment. You can find Liquefied over at liquefiedrv.com or over in the RV Miles Amazon store. Jason, what is just sloshing around in your black tank this week?
I'm trying to find it. Where'd it go?
That was quite the image, didn't I? I provided quite the image for that, didn't I?
So my black tank is this situation in Florida with the Florida State Park. So I've covered it now on 2 news videos. So I did an in-depth video covering the situation there and then an update on the latest RV and camping news roundup, which, by the way, we're going to start putting those back in the podcast feed.
They're back.
A lot of you have asked for that, and we're going to do it. We're putting them back in the RV Mile, an audio version of it back in the RV Miles podcast feed. You might hear me say things like, look at this, and you can't see it if you're listening to a podcast, but hey, it's going to be there.
But there was enough requests. Yeah. We've gotten enough emails now where we were like, okay, clearly people don't care that much about the few little seconds, at least there. We try very, very hard with this show to make sure that if it's the audio or video version, you still get the same beautiful picture that we can paint for you, no matter how you're watching it.
For this show, the video is just additional. Like it's an audio first thing, right?
Bonus.
That's why a lot of you have asked for us, like, well, you should put more B-roll and photos and stuff. We try to when we can, but like it's an hour something episode, and that's a lot, right? So
we're a podcast first and a long form YouTube video second. Not to diminish any of our actually new friends over at YouTube that have joined us recently. Hi, new friends. We're so glad to have you.
Crazy enough to want to look at our faces for this long. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Jason, because I didn't have enough issues with the camera in front of my face to begin with. Okay,
anyway,
so Florida. Somebody go ahead and get a hold of Florida. They're drunk.
This is the most ridiculous, grifty situation. Everybody from, Republicans and Democrats are all against what's going on. This is the wildest situation in Florida.
I have never seen us come together as a nation
this
quite
is
like the way
unified
Florida
people left and right.
Florida is unified right now. People,
seriously, on that video, the first one I put out, there are over like 540 comments, and I think there are 3 like positive about this plan.
This is our democracy in action, right? Like holding our public officials accountable regardless of the party that they are a part of. I don't know what they are doing over there.
So listen, we're from a state. Look at there are some people that are defensive about Florida that are from Florida. And listen, we are from a state where 4 of our last 10 governors have gone to prison. Okay?
Oh my God, y'all.
We get it. We get it. Okay.
There was just a video of Rob Blagojevich at a food festival in like one of the suburbs, like I don't know if it was Glen Ellen or whatever it was, with his band. This used to be the governor of our state with his collar flipped up at a food festival. Playing the hits.
We know.
We get it.
And from both sides of the aisle, Illinois is home of corruption. We know.
Get it.
So
we get it.
What if you're not familiar with what's going on in Florida? Here's a quick recap: is that there were some leaked documents that there were going to be some big changes at 9 Florida state parks, which included 3 golf courses at one, Jonathan Dickinson State Park, and 2 350-room lodges at 2 other parks, along with pickleball courts, disc golf courses, and cabins and more at all the rest of the parks, right? So these leaked documents came out, and Florida very quickly put a press release out announcing, "Hey, this is happening, and we're going to have some hearings on it, some in-person."
What are y'all doing in 5 days?
The legally required feedback meetings the community feedback meetings that they're supposed to have when this happens. They were given a 1 week's notice for 8 in-person meetings all across the state that were an hour long, that we're going to be playing a video presentation. Why don't you just play the video online instead of making everybody show up? Because you're not opening it up for questions. That was very specifically stated. So this was an attempt to do the very bare minimum required, but it's not the bare minimum required, because we got some quotes from like a former state park director in Florida that was saying what the process is supposed to be. They're supposed to form a community based committee that includes local business representatives, a environmental organization representing the park, and more, and residents of the local area about these. Everybody knows that state parks and national parks can have lodges. A small handful of them have golf courses, pickleball courts, disc golf course. Those things happen in parks. We all know that. This isn't about that concept that a park can have a lodge. What this is about is it being crammed through and the size of these things. So
I would argue it's a little bit about those things in the particular parks they're trying to put them into.
It's about nobody knowing what it is and getting them. They know that. So they're trying. They knew that this was going to face some difficult challenges with Florida residents, because they tried it like 5 or 6 years ago.
Some difficult challenges.
So what it turned out, it looked like it was just a proposal from the state parks department that they had these things that they wanted to do. Like, here's where a golf course could go. Turned out, no surprise, there was a developer attached and has been for months. And the developer had plans for this.
He also happens to just be the son of a really, really famous golfer. I mean, it's amazing how these things happen.
What's wild to me. So we've covered this in depth now on 2 news videos. Here's the wild part to me now that's come in the last couple days. This is what makes it really the black tank is the pandering. So what has come out now is that these golf courses they were going to celebrate the Tuskegee Airmen, the black war hero pilots from Alabama.
Why?
Not Florida.
Why?
Because we're going to try to pander to everybody.
So what about that particular? What about Jonathan Dickinson State Park?
We're going to pander to people who care about this country's history of racism and supporting black heroes. We're also going to say this is going to be a park that these golf courses are going to celebrate veterans and first responders. So we're going to pander to those people as well. And we're also going to say this is a public course, which means that, it's more affordable golfing for people that can't afford to golf. So we're going to pander to poor people as well. They literally ran the list and this was like, this was like a statement that was like, we're sorry, we're not going to do it. We know this is not what people want. But just so you know,
look at everything you're missing out on now.
Our golf course was celebrating the Tuskegee Airmen. What kind of golf? I've never seen a golf course celebrate anybody.
I do love, except the golfer. I do love when we pick up certain news stories from the news and talk about them here, because this is, you had a couple comments that it's so funny over on the news video. You always get accused of being, you're either a Republican or you're a Democrat. You're either Ted Cruz or you're you've been everything over there. Over here is where we get to have our opinion on things. Yeah. Over there, we try very, very hard to just, as you did such an excellent job of just presenting that information.
I did have to throw in a little dig on that.
I did appreciate the fact that you suggested a water park at the Grand Canyon. That sounds fantastic. Make that happen.
Susan B. Anthony.
Yeah, can we make that happen? National Park Service. Thank you.
Well, I think this, like we said, it is something that has unified people in their resistance to something. Because it's okay. So this is the other thing that came out. So the Florida State Parks Department also tweeted then. I'm going to call it a tweet because it's still a tweet.
We still tweet.
They also posted on X. They also tweeted that a sort of snarky response to all the pushback on this. And they were like, well, Yosemite and Zion have lodges too. Look at this wonderful lodge in Zion. It would fit within the environment like this lodge in Zion. That lodge in Zion has 76 rooms. These 2 lodges, which are in state parks that are next to towns, next to large cities,
plenty of
that are respites for people to get away from those cities, would have 350 rooms each. They're huge. And there are plenty of not only golf courses, 1,200 golf courses, more than any other state in Florida. And there are certainly plenty of hotels and places like St. Augustine that it's not a barrier to access. So people can't visit our wonderful state park that is literally in the city limits of St. Augustine. Where we plan to build a lodge.
Florida has a beautiful ecosystem. It is a beautiful state with some gorgeous beaches. And I am really glad to see that the citizens of Florida appreciate those spaces, and they so quickly mobilized together and all came together from all different political spheres. and they came together to stand up for the endangered wildlife that this would impact, that these really fragile ecosystems that are being protected. So,
and there's a huge history of that in Florida. Like, look into the history of the protection of the Everglades and the fight to save the Everglades. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, we did an episode on her.
Go listen to America's National Parks podcast and you can learn all about it.
The Florida residents have done some essential work in saving some of the Florida ecosystems and to the betterment of Florida. There are wonderful parts of Florida that need to be protected, and most of them on the coast, which is where most of these state parks are.
They ever come for Illinois State Beach, I'm going to be right there.
Hey, if they want to put a giant lodge on that giant parking lot in Illinois State Beach State Park, fine. Illinois State Beach State Park, which is worst. It's just north of Chicago. It's got a beach, and that's great. We have wonderful beaches on Lake Michigan, but it has campground, campsites and stuff. But some of those campsites are on a giant parking lot. It's like a theme park size parking lot, and it's
ridiculous.
Lanes with lines on them. Here's where you park for your campsite.
Yeah,
they should do something with that.
They should. Maybe they should. Like maybe they should make a campground out of it, or put a golf course there. All right. What is in your fresh tank this week?
So this is a fresh tank. This is a bit of a gray tank. It's really just kind of news. I think that I found interesting, something that's happened that popped up that I didn't get to share on this most recent news update that is about the upcoming Hershey RV show.
Ooh, breaking news.
So the Hershey RV show, is one of the two big manufacturer shows in the country. So there are RV shows all around the country. Two of them, the Florida RV Super Show that happens in Tampa and the Hershey RV Show that happens in Hershey, Pennsylvania, are organized by the RV manufacturers. And those are the two biggest shows in the country. They argue over who's the biggest. The manufacturers put them together and they show off new models at these often. So the Hershey show is sort of the launch of the 2025 model year kind of for the industry. And the Florida RV show is sort of the mid-season show where they get, lots of folks coming down to Florida that are down there wintering already. And we talked about that show last week and some issues with that one in the camping. But what's interesting about the Hershey show that I just found out is they are trying to move it. They are trying to move it not far. They're trying to move it from the Giant Center, which is a big arena complex where they have it at.
Is it really called the Giant Center?
It's called the Giant Center.
Okay.
And it is, it's owned by like Hershey Amusement.
Mm-hmm.
They are trying to build their own complex on like 70 some acres outside of Hershey that is just for the Hershey RV show. And they'll have their headquarters there and they'll have the show there. And presumably they'll probably have, rent it out to other things throughout the course of the year. They're running into some problems, it looks like, with getting zoning approval on this agricultural land for this to happen, but they're working on it, and this is something they're trying to get done.
Are you saying they're taking the appropriate steps?
They are going through the channels that are required.
Interesting.
In order to develop land in this country.
What a novel idea. Also, Florida RV Super Show. Take note. Looks like Hershey just threw down the gauntlet.
Yeah. I mean, with Florida having this problem where they are not going to be able to allow people to camp there potentially, I wouldn't be surprised if they're looking for another spot too, because a lot of those people that camp on the grounds at the Florida RV Super Show are there to buy RVs.
Mm-hmm. I know I would be if I was them.
All right. What's in your black tank this week?
I have no black tanks this week. It is birthday week.
Therefore,
we stay positive on birthday week. So first fresh tank goes to our son, our editor of this podcast. I would like to say happy birthday to Jack. He turns 17 this weekend, 17 years young. It's amazing. It just feels like yesterday when we were trying to have a little baby moon and got the phone call that Jack was actually due on September 11th. And we were having a little baby moon a few weeks before his due date and got the phone call that they thought maybe I had a giant baby inside of me, and they felt that it would not be best for him to, that he needed to be born cesarean. And he was. He came out at 22 3/4 inches long, weighing 9 pounds, 10 ounces. He was a big guy. And today, as he turned 17, he is 6'5". He has lived up to that tall status his whole life. We are so proud of you, Jack. We are so proud of everything that you have done and everything you will do. So very, very happy birthday to him.
And of course, his birthday is one day after your birthday.
Oh, we don't need to talk about that.
Which is just
positive vibes, Jason.
That's a positive thing.
It is. It
is very positive. We're very happy to have you as well. And you have been such a huge rock for this family. And we couldn't live without you. And you are the love of all of our lives. And
stop it. No crying on the podcast. No crying. You don't cry on podcasts.
And your birthday often gets overshadowed a little bit by Jack's.
Hey, we're not traveling this year on my birthday, though.
This is it
is
almost
like a first.
Always works out that we're traveling on your birthday for whatever reason. And this time we're not.
We're not traveling. Although last year we didn't travel either. I got to go to a Cubs game last year for my birthday, which was a lot of fun. I have one other, and thank you. I should say thank you for that. It's hard for me. Wow, and you wonder why I don't ever say thank you. It's very hard.
That's why.
It's very hard for me to take compliments like that. That it's hard for me to not want to. The Midwesterner in me wants to offset that with some sort of but I got all that on discount. I got it all on sale, something like but thank you for
it was at that. Marshall's. It was 50% off.
Listen, I got my great personality at Kohl's with my Kohl's cash. What do you want? It's fine. Oh my goodness. I have one other fresh tank, and that is I'm really excited that Mile Markers are doing a fantasy football league this year. And our friend of the show, James, a Mile Marker member, it was his suggestion. And we were able to get enough of us all together to have a nice, really good size league that's going to be starting up actually next week. And that's like really fun. This is some of the fun things that, we love doing with Mile Marker members. There's, continuing to have that small, intimate community over there allows us to do these things. I'd love to see like a book club in the future roll out. Have you thought of your name for your...
My team, no, I don't.
I got my team name.
I don't do the cutesy names like you do. I gotta come up with a name.
You want to know what mine is?
Abby spent. No, I'm not kidding. Hours yesterday coming up with a team name for her fantasy football team.
And then I didn't use any of them, and I changed it at the last minutes today.
Okay.
My team name is Scott's Tots. How good is that?
Whoa.
How good is that? Such a deep cut, isn't it?
Well, not that deep if you watch The Office.
It's not. I mean, it's kind of not, but also at the same time, I just felt like I started off with Ray Finkel, and then my son accused me of stealing it from my brother.
That was your brother's name last year.
It was not last year. He didn't play last year. It was the year before.
2 years.
So I was going to be Ray Finkel, and then I decided I'm going to go be Scott's Tots.
Einhorn and Finkel.
Yeah, but I spent a decent amount of time. Like, there's just no good players on the Bears who have really unique names that get played.
I made mine Jason's team.
You should be like Tonight on the CW or something. It should be like something like that for Caleb Williams.
Anyway, we're going to be recording our Mile Marker detour episode right after this show, where we're going to talk about some of our favorite campgrounds. We're actually going to draft in celebration of this draft. We're going to draft campgrounds from each other and see who's got the better list. So you can check that out if you are a Mile Marker member or if you want to become one.
Yep. And just go to rvmiles.com/milemarkers to learn more. It's only $7 a month and you can try it out, or $70 for the year. You get 2 months free. And before we roll out of this with a lot of that's it. That's all we have for today. I would like to roll out of this not asking people to go leave a podcast review or sharing anything that's RV Miles related. But instead, I would like to roll out of this today asking the RV Miles community for some good thoughts, for some prayers, for the vibes, the light, whatever you would like to give. My cousin and his wife, they welcomed their baby girl, Maggie, into the world on Sunday. They have tried for many, many years to have a baby, and Maggie came into the world slightly earlier than we thought Maggie had planned, but Maggie had plans that were different. Maggie was actually due December 4th. She came into the world on August 25th. She was 25 weeks and 3 days old. Maggie came into the world weighing 1 pound and 14 ounces and 12.75 inches long. Maggie is incredibly tiny. Maggie is a fighter. She is doing great. Mom and baby are doing great. But Maggie has a long road ahead of her. Her mom and dad have a long road ahead of her. I don't normally bring stuff like this to the podcast, but this little baby just needs every bit that we can give them, as do Brandon and Corey. They need every bit of love that we can muster up in this world. They have got an incredible road ahead of them and an incredible story that Maggie will be able to carry with her for the rest of her life. But if you've got a second and you can think of that family, boy, would I appreciate that, because I know we're thinking a lot about them here. So that is my birthday wish for this week.
Thanks a lot for being here, everybody. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.